How many times have you heard me say communists only understand fear and pain? We've talked about this over and over and over and over again. We're about to talk about it again. We're about to talk about the why, because there is something wonderful happening, and we need to give credit where credit is due. Let me first get this out of the way, in case you happen to be a new viewer of us here on I'm Right. I don't wave pom-poms for people. I don't. Nobody. No politician, no nothing. They're all just rental cars to me. Use them to get where you're going and then dump them, just because that's exactly what they'll do to you. And so even when we have the administration we want, when we don't see the results we want, we yell. But we also need to give out credit where credit is due. We've been yelling about the necessity for government people to be arrested. Not the latest gang bang or this, that stuff is fine. People in government, communists, using the system for their own nefarious goals must be arrested. Let me go ahead and get this out of the way again. If Trump's 4 years ends without government people in prison, no matter what else happens, trade, border, what else, his 4 years will have been a failure. And I say that not to be harsh. I say that because rooting out the communist cancer inside the government is the most important goal by a mile. The border can just be unsecured again by these people if you leave them where they are. Trade can be destroyed again by these people if you leave them where they are. Inflation, go down the list. All these problems we're fixing all come right back without government people going to prison. So let's discuss what we're seeing here. We have 2 judges arrested last week, 2 of them. One of these ladies, this Dugan out of Milwaukee, listen to what she did.
The judge learns that ICE was outside to get the guy because he had been deported in 2013, came back in our country, commits these crimes, charged with committing these crimes, victims in court. Judge finds out. She goes out in the hallway, screams at the immigration officers. She's furious, visibly shaken, upset, sends them off to talk to the chief judge. She comes back in the courtroom. You're not going to believe this. Takes the defendant and the defense attorney back in her chambers, takes them out a private exit and tells them to leave. While a state prosecutor and victims of domestic violence are sitting in the courtroom.
Why would she do that? This is going to be the fear and pain portion. A judge? A judge just aided a felon escaping law enforcement. Why would she do that? Well, this is important. This is important for understanding why we have to arrest communists, why they only understand fear and pain. So let me again explain it this way. Politics is probably what you do, not who you are. Let me explain. That's a good thing. And I'm not doubting your beliefs on what you want out of government or don't want out of government. I know you probably believe it all the way. But it's not your entire life, is it? I'm glad you join us every single night here watching I'm Right. I appreciate that very much. But you have other things in your life, family, work, church. You have a life outside of it. It's not your religion. You don't look to it every minute of every day, do you? Of course you don't. I hope you don't. But see, this is the separation between us and the communists. The communist does. He does. It is everything to him. He will show up in every election. He will peruse the news. I didn't mean for that to rhyme, but that sounded good. And he will sit there and just get angrier and angrier and angrier all day long. I got to do something. Ah! He is a religious zealot in every sense of the word. If you want to understand how these people think, you should actually look to radical Islam. It's the closest I've ever seen. These jihadis who walk into a theater with a nail bomb and blow themselves up, the American Democrat more closely resembles that person than anyone else in your life, certainly closer to him than he ever could be to you. Politics, power, destruction is everything to the communist. And so the communist, he doesn't set aside his communism when he gets really important jobs, important roles. This is how we get confused. This is why we get confused. Maybe you woke up and you saw a headline of a judge whisking away an illegal to escape custody, and you thought to yourself, What? That's unbelievable. Did you say anything like that? Unbelievable. Well, it's very, very believable. Did you think Dugan sees herself as a judge just because she went through law school and jumped through all the hoops and had this long legal career, and now she wears these judge's robes and has a really important job? Do you think she sees herself as a judge first? She doesn't see herself as a judge first. She's a communist first. It's her religion. Everything else is secondary. It doesn't matter whether she puts on a judge's robes, a general's uniform. Doesn't matter whether she puts on the uniform of a Cub Scout leader, a newsman, a politician, an FBI agent. Communism always comes first. Everything else is a side issue. Everything else is ancillary. In fact, the communist is usually pretty honest, as Dugan once was. They really only got that role. They only sought out that role to push more communism.
The law is a real challenge in making sure that justice happens for people. It's transformative in people's lives, but it also, especially in the United States, it's considered a stabilizing force. It's something that keeps us on a constant path. The rule of law is how we address our social issues, how we address our disputes, but also how we grow as people. I, as a person who for a couple decades almost represented low-income people, it is due process that really equalizes those differences between people. Then we're able to achieve that equal justice that we are promised and hope to have continue despite our differences, despite our class differences, despite our racial and religious differences.
Does she sound like a woman who sits down there on the bench just trying to do a judge's job, the way a judge is supposed to do it? Or does that sound like a 100% committed communist who sought out the role of judge in order to push communism every single place she went? It doesn't matter what uniform, what skin suit the communist puts on. He's always a communist first. That's why you walk in Aiden, Jaden, and Braden's second grade classroom and you see the teacher there with pink hair, a bunch of rings in her face, a Black Lives Matter poster trying to teach your sons how to be gay. They didn't seek out the role as teacher so they could teach. They sought it out so they could push communism. And if they have to do some teaching along the way, that's fine. But that brings me back to the point of why this is so important and why we should applaud it. And I know what you're saying. It's just the start. It's just the very beginning. I know. This is just the tip. This is just the beginning. There are so many more arrests needed. But you see, because he's a religious zealot who never can set his communism aside, the only chance you have at stopping him in his revolutionary efforts is fear and pain. It's all he will ever understand. Solzhenitsyn talked about it, having been a victim of communism, a member of the gulags. He called communists the enemies of the human race. And he said, all they understand is the big fist. And the harder you hit them, the safer they will be. Now, we don't like thinking like that or talking like that on the right. It makes us uncomfortable. But these people, unless they have to wake up on Monday morning and open up social media and look at videos of other communists being arrested for their crimes, will never, ever, ever stop. They can't. They have to know something will hurt them. My dog, it's just like your dog. Table scraps, food that gets dropped on the floor. He's going to get it. He can't help it. It's in his instincts. It's in his nose. When he smells it, he can't help it. Now, what's the only way? The only way I will get my dog to stop running for a fry when my sons purposely drop it on the ground. I have to discipline him in some way. I don't know, whip him with the newspaper, something, yell at him, something. Unless I find a way to give him pain, fear, he will never stop. The American communist is just like the Soviet communist, the Chinese communist, the Cambodian communist, the Canadian communist. They're all the same. They will never, ever, ever, ever stop because they are religious zealots and they are communists first. It's why these press conferences like the one Tom Homan gave are actually very, very valuable.
Any public official, whether you're mayor, city councilman, or governor, their number one responsibility is protection of the communities. And ICE has been clear, we're targeting public safety threats and national security threats. I can't believe there's any elected official, and especially a judge, that doesn't believe we should be doing that, and they should be helping us. But ICE have from day one. You can sit aside and watch, you can argue against us all you want and protest all you want, but when you cross that line, I've said this 1,000 times, when you cross that line to impediment or knowingly harboring, concealing an illegal alien from ICE, you will be prosecuted, judge or not.
Which brings me to something else I want us to understand as we wrap this thing up, because Governor J.B. Pritzker said something that was pretty revealing of how these people think. Before I show it to you, I want to say this. Remember, the reason they're like this, part of the reason they're like this is communism is now and always will be a revolutionary ideology, religion, however you want to put it. I'll call it a religion. It's revolutionary. It first got going in the Soviet Union, in Russia, as a revolutionary movement, revolting against the czars, revolting against this. It's always billed as revolutionary. When Mao did it, they were revolting against the system they had in China at the time. Pol Pot, same thing here. America's Democrats, exact same thing here. Revolutionary. And because it's revolutionary, the idea is tear down the existing power structures, tear down everything. What exists, everything in power that exists is bad, and our revolution has to tear it down. That's how these people think. And so even when they're in critical positions of power, like judge, even president, senator, or governor of Illinois, they speak as revolutionaries.
Never before in my life have I called for mass protests, for mobilization, for disruption, but I am now. These Republicans cannot know a moment of peace. They have to understand that we will fight their cruelty with every megaphone and microphone that we have. We must castigate them on the soapbox and then punish them at the ballot box.
They can't help it. It's in their bones. Revolutionary, religious zealots. Arrest them everywhere you find them committing crimes. They will always commit crimes because, again, the idea is to break the system they're in. All that may have made you uncomfortable, but I am right.
We are going to prosecute you, and we are prosecuting you. I found out about this the day it happened. We could not believe, actually, that a judge really did that. We looked into the facts in great depth. That's her picture up on the screen, Hannah Dugan, who is now in custody. You cannot obstruct a criminal case, and really, shame on her. It was a domestic violence case of all cases, and she's protecting a criminal defendant over victims of crime.
Good. It's a good start. Couple judges getting arrested. I'd say a good start. I'll put it that way. Joining me now, former heavyweight boxing champion of the world. Gosh, that's so freaking cool to have that on your resume the rest of your life. David Nino Rodriguez, host of Nino's Corner. Nino, I am a happy man. And look, I know it's just a start, but at least we have some of these scumbags going to jail.
Absolutely. I'm excited about that. These are just what I call the preliminary arrests. Like you have preliminary fights to the main event. These are the preliminary arrests. Mark my words. These are going to get better. They're going to go up in scale. I think probably once the Russiagate blows open and 2020, those are all coming, I predict, this year by August. And I think we're going to see some bigger type arrests. I think more prominent arrests. And, any judge that's obstructing justice or slowing down the process is just shining a light on themselves. And I believe, I call it the Trump operation, not the Trump administration, that they will be arrested and be held accountable for harboring and aiding and abetting terrorism.
Nino, a lot of people found this story to be just simply unbelievable. I don't even know which one is more shocking. The judge in New Mexico that had a prison gang member living with him and his wife, or the judge who helped somebody escape out her private quarters. It's so brazen. These people just, operate and think they'll never be charged?
They think they're above the law, and I know El Paso is probably one of the deepest parts of the swamp, if you want to know the truth. You got to remember the cartels control a lot of Texas, a lot of New Mexico, a lot of Arizona, well, a lot of all 50 states, if you want to know the truth. But I think that we will see, as this progresses, more and more judges go down, lawyers, immigration lawyers. The whole swamp is going to get drained, and I think we're just seeing the very beginning of it right now. You got to remember, who's controlling both sides of the border? It's the cartels.
Yeah,
they have these politicians in their back pocket, is what I'm saying.
No, I think we should expand on that a little bit more, because people who know will point out how many banks there are in these tiny towns along the southern border. People who know will talk about the public corruption. We like to think that we're above that, and that's a Mexico problem. That happens in Colombia, but how many cops, how many judges, how many mayors are on cartel payrolls in this country? The answer is way more than we think about.
Oh, you're not, and let's not forget churches. Wait till that cracks open.
Yeah.
We're talking about all of it, every institution, every organization, not just the politics here, not just politicians. When this cracks open and people understand just how corrupt all systems are, all organizations, and who's controlling it all, these 501c3s, I think it's going to be a big awakening, even a greater awakening that's already happening. This exposing is about to hit a point of no return. Seriously. When you find out how much the cartels really control through China, by the way, China also runs side by side with the cartels. This is going to pop open, and people are going to see just how corrupt our system really is.
Nino, Pam Bondi, well, here she was talking about that raid in Colorado.
During the Biden administration, they received 170 911 calls to that club alone. That club we were just watching, 170 calls. Wouldn't you think that would have been a red flag? Nothing happened. Guns, shootings, ag batteries, nothing happened. So under Donald Trump, DEA, FBI, U.S. Marshals, ATF, ICE, everyone went in together. DEA led this investigation, went in, got 115 illegal immigrants, aliens in our country, arrested them, 2 with warrants, 12 guns seized. So what would happen in this club is you would go in, security would give you a menu of drugs, cocaine, there's something new called pink cocaine, meth, you could go in a bathroom stall, get that, there was prostitution, all these things going on. And we just now identified a member of Sinaloa cartel was also in there.
Good God. Pink cocaine just makes me feel old. I don't even know what drugs are anymore. But the Biden administration clearly just allowed these things to operate. They wanted these things to operate. How am I supposed to take that any other way, Nino?
Well, that was a shot across the bow. Look, I'll tell you what's happening here in El Paso, okay? They've closed down a lot of the tunneling systems here, okay? And then this started happening even before Trump got in. So it makes me wonder how long has this been really happening? Because one of the main tunnels that they closed down, a main artery, was shut down before even Trump got in office. So I think this operation has been afoot for a while now. But regarding what I just saw right there, the immigrants being rounded up in a club raid, they've raided apartment complexes here. I've seen soldiers, Army soldiers, with the police, which I've never seen before. I didn't get much details on that, but there was an apartment complex right next to my house that got raided, and it looked like they were taking in a bunch of immigrants with Army personnel and the police side by side. So I'm not sure how that was being played out. It was to me, I was like, I have never seen that before in my life. But, I have friends here in El Paso that have clubs, have, topless bars, things like that, and nobody's showing up for work. People are scared. Like all their employees are just not coming to work. So their businesses are suffering. I just said this on another program earlier. When I was traveling from El Paso to San Antonio back, usually that flight is packed to the gills no matter what time you go. This time I went 70 to 100 open seats. So they're not even traveling. They're not going to work. 30 million plus immigrants are just in a frozen state right now, not knowing what to do. So the Trump effect is real, and it's happening.
I love it. And, you know, let's shift gears and cross the pond over towards Russia, Ukraine. I keep telling people the peace process is going to take a long time. Everyone thinks it's going to be a day. Donald Trump gets in there and negotiates this and that. It's a lot harder to stop a war than it is to start one, but it looks like we're making some kind of progress.
You know, I think Zelensky, obviously, I'm not the only one that thinks this. He's controlled by the globalists. They use the countries as proxies. Ukraine has been shown to have biolabs. It's a money laundering. It's the head of the snake for the money laundering of the Biden regime, of any other dirty, filthy politicians and presidents. So, yeah, they're going to drag their feet, you know. I don't see a peace deal coming that easily. I think there's a lot of evidence they got to get rid of. I think, like I said, Zelensky wants this war. The globalists want this war. And Putin, I believe, is just doing what he needs to do in his interest. It's going to be very hard.
You very much.
It's going to be very, very hard.
I would thank you for coming to my YouTube channel, but I know how brilliant it is, and I know you love it here. So subscribe and watch. We're going to start really ramping things up and putting some funny stuff, some interesting stuff out there, some collaborations. Either way, my YouTube channel is officially the place to be. So stick around.